So my talk today is called Connecting the Dots, Impact Statements from the NMC Horizon Project. So many of you may be familiar with the Horizon Project. This idea of impact statements is something that we've been focusing on, and we're actually doubling down on as we move into 2018. So what I'm going to do is cover a lot of ground today. I'm going to focus on, here's an overview. I'm going to give an introduction. I know Griffith University has been a great member of the NMC since 2008, but not everyone is familiar with some of the NMC's work, and as members, I want to keep you informed. So I'm going to give a brief introduction. I'm going to introduce the two reports. We've recently completed a K-12 report, and we have our 2018 higher ed report is currently in process. I think we're going to have the early findings here pretty soon, but I'm going to reference the 2017 report from around last February. So I'm going to look at the K-12 and higher ed together under these impact statements as a guiding principle here. And then we'll have some exemplars. I'm going to give you some examples that we have featured in the report, and then open it up for Q&A. So let's go ahead and get started here. Okay, so a little pointer here. I hope that everyone has had the opportunity to read the Horizon report or flip through it. If you haven't, that's great. You have a link here, go.nmc.org/2017-HE is the download for this publication. We want to thank EDUCAUSE Learning Initiative for helping to sponsor this report for the higher ed report. And our recent report, our NMC COSIN Horizon Report 2017 K-12 edition, can be found at go.nmc.org/2017-K-12. And that's made possible by the consortium for COSIN and MindSpark Learning. So we thank them for their support and helping us with our projects. If you are on Twitter today, that's great, because so are we. We're very active on Twitter. We have around 18,000 followers. So if you are interested or there's something that resonates with you in today's presentation, you can use the hashtag NMCHZ, and you can follow us at NMC.org and all things related to the Horizon Project there. Okay, about the NMC. So the NMC, here's our mission statement. We connect people at the intersection of imagination and technology to spark innovation, learning, and creativity. I like to say that we're kind of a nonprofit think tank. We bring together many universities across the world who are actively using educational technology to further teaching and learning. We're based here in Austin, Texas, and right now we're in the middle of Halloween season. I don't know if you celebrate Halloween in Australia, but that's where everyone dresses up and trick-or-treating and candy. So if a ghost or ghoul pops up during this presentation, that's going to be one. Okay, so one of the things that we've been doing is trying to really provide some focus as to what the NMC is here for. And so we have some tenets that we've produced that it helps kind of explain what the NMC is about. So at the NMC, we believe tech must be in the service of deepening learning experiences for everyone. We embrace the inner lifelong learner within the NMC. So this is, you're within a community of people that are continuing to learn. NMCers are challenged to continuously expand their knowledge and sharpen their tools together. We connect silos. We believe all sectors can learn from one another. Although we're really focused with higher ed, I come from the museum world, so we have people that are working in formal and informal learning. We do major reports across many sectors. And at the NMC, we like to play often. Membership is an opportunity to be curious, explore, and play. And whoa, okay, there's one of the ghosts that got into my slide deck, so let me get rid of him. And next, build solutions through vision. So we've got 15 years of global research where we've been helping people with strategic planning. So that's kind of where the Horizon Project comes in. More information here at membership. If there's anybody that you know within the K-12 community, we're going to look at 2018 as an opportunity to get more K-12 folks involved there. As I mentioned, 15 years of global research into emerging technology uptake. Here's a number of our pieces have been translated over 80 times, and we continue to grow our corpus of knowledge. This is the last 2,000 downloads. We are read all over the world. You can see Australia and New Zealand very well represented in the amounts of downloads that we receive. And of course, informal and formal learning. We have higher ed, K-12 reports, museums, libraries, and then we're looking at regional sector technology outlooks. Love to do an Australasian report. I know there's some interest in doing something within the region, and so if anyone is interested in doing a report in that area, let me know. We're actively searching for some sponsors in that area. So let's dive into the reports themselves. What I have here is our K-12 edition. I'm sorry, our higher ed edition, so you get a sense, you probably have a good sense of this, the topics in here since we've been talking about them for quite some time. We have, our reports are broken up into 3 different sections, the trends, the challenges, and the technologies. And so within higher ed, we see short-term blended learning designs and collaborative learning taking, being much of the conversation right now. In midterm, we're looking at growing focus on measuring learning, so that's all things related to learning analytics and predictive analytics and just anything dealing with data. And in the midterm, we also have redesigning learning spaces, so with new pedagogical approaches within higher ed, we're seeing the need to rearrange spaces. So if you look at this cover here, this is Case Western Reserve University. This is an example of one of their classrooms and how we've done away with the rows of chairs for more flexible learning options. Within the long term, these are topics of long-term conversations within higher ed, advancing cultures of innovation. So this is entrepreneurial approaches to teaching and learning, and deeper learning approaches, which is that student-centered, project-based learning, problem-based learning, the things that really connect learning to the real world. Within the significant challenges, we have those that are solvable, which is improving digital literacy, perhaps one of the most important challenges to overcome. Integrating formal and informal learning. We're seeing a lot of multidisciplinary and interdisciplinary work happening. In the difficult realm, we have the achievement gaps. So we have being aware that race and gender and economic status is sometimes a key factor in success within college, and how do we overcome that? And as well as advancing digital equity. Wicked challenges, those are challenges that are complex to define, much less address, are managing knowledge obsolescence as we begin to incorporate new tools. This is an important thing to be able to keep track of and keep ahead of these advancements. And then rethinking the roles of educators. So in terms of, now that we are moving towards this more student-centered approach, it means that educators who may have been teaching in a certain way will need to rethink how they deliver their course material, and with online learning being a big part of that too. And then the last section is with our tech developments. We have 1 year or less, which are adaptive learning technologies. So those are the new courseware that are more personalizing the student experience related to that measuring learning idea. Mobile learning, understanding that learning happens inside and outside of the classroom. 2 to 3 years, we have, bless you, 2 to 3 years, we have the Internet of Things. So that is smart objects, wearable computing can fall under that. The idea of giving objects, being able to control objects through Wi-Fi and different, having URLs for objects. Next generation learning management systems, that's really pushing the learning management system path more. The criticism is that LMSs are teaching management systems, electronic gradebooks, but how can we incorporate new developments into these learning management systems so they can be more student-centered? And then the 4 to 5 year horizon are the 2 topics, artificial intelligence and natural user interfaces. So that's haptic interfaces using voice, using motion control, and then artificial intelligence, of course, being a big trend or big technology that is continuing to build steam. Now, if we move on to the K-12 report, we see some alignment and some differences. And the reason I bring up the K-12 report is this is our global report. And so these are the students, these are the issues that students are facing now within schools that is a direct pipeline into higher ed. So understanding how technology is impacting K-12 will help higher ed understand the types of students that are coming in, their expectations. So on the short-term horizon, we have coding as a literacy that's becoming increasingly important as we start seeing the need for computer science literacy within jobs. You know, there's a big within the job market, we're forecasting trends where there's just not enough people to fill those positions. So being able to focus on coding is important. The rise of STEAM learning, we've talked a lot about science, technology, engineering, and math. So within schools, that interdisciplinary, multidisciplinary approach is seen in that stat. It's incorporating the arts into the sciences. Within midterm, growing focus on measuring learning, same thing there. Learning analytics is being used quite frequently within schools. And then redesigning learning spaces, the same thing. That student-centered approach that's happening in schools is requiring the development of new types of spaces. Within long term, we see two of the same topics that we see in higher ed. These are the pedagogical pushes that we're seeing. Cultures of innovation, the real-world, hands-on type learning, and then deeper learning approaches. I'm sorry, the entrepreneurial approaches within advancing cultures of innovation. So innovating within maker spaces, building products, and then deeper learning approaches is that real-world connection. Within significant challenges, authentic learning experiences, which relates to deeper learning approaches. Those are the more the hands-on learning approaches. But with authentic learning, the issue is it's a trend and a challenge because it's not as easy to incorporate into courses. Improving digital literacy is a solvable trend, a solvable challenge as well here. So we see some parallels between higher ed and schools. Within the difficult, same thing, rethinking the roles of teachers as these pedagogies change, the roles of teachers change. The other thing is teaching computational thinking is a difficult challenge. So relating to coding as literacy, the idea of how can we teach computational thinking integrated into coursework is not as easy to do, but is important. And as in the higher ed report, the achievement gap is an important challenge to solve within schools. And then one of the newest topics that has come into our K-12 report is sustaining innovation through leadership changes. So you have a pioneer on campus that comes in and they have some broad sweeping changes and then they leave. What happens? And so that is something that is happening a lot within the schools. Within technologies, we have on the short-term horizon, maker spaces, of course, the idea of being able to, that connects with that deeper learning and cultures of innovation, having more hands-on learning. And then robotics being kind of the physical version of the coding. So coding being applied to things within our environment, robotics. In the 2 to 3 years, we see that data connection being important, analytics technologies, of course. And then virtual reality is made it into the K-12 report as well, because we're seeing a lot more immersive experiences being able to supplement textbooks. And then similar to higher ed, artificial intelligence is going to impact not only schools, but higher ed and many things within our world. So artificial intelligence is something that we have keeping our eyes on. And then, of course, the Internet of Things and how that we can apply that to teaching as well. Okay. So we started out by calling these meta-categories, but we changed it to impact statements because as you probably, as I was explaining those topics, you probably thought, well, there's a lot of connections between these topics, and so when we conduct our research, we work with a panel of experts, and they help us come up with those most important topics, and we try to isolate what's unique about that topic when we explain it. But what we've been doing at the NMC is really thinking deeply about, okay, what of these 18 topics within our report, what is it telling us about education? What are some of the things that, if we were to boil down our reports into 6 major categories, what would they be? And so we've been focused quite a bit on this idea of impact statements. And so at the NMC, you're going to hear a lot of that as we go into 2018. as a way of organizing some of these ideas. On the top left, we have expanding access and convenience. So that's things such as virtual reality, providing access to a space you might not have access to. Mobile learning is another thing that would fall under that. Spurring innovation, of course, that's going to be the maker spaces and the entrepreneurial pushes within education. Fostering authentic learning is that more real-world approach. We have a little guy with a cane and a backpack, so that's kind of going out into the world and using the world as a place for study. Tracking and evaluating evidence is where we place anything data-related. We know data is very important within formal learning, and that is a key aspect of our reports. A lot of people say, well, if we invest in this technology, what's the return on it? How do we know this is going to work? And so, a lot of experimentations in this area. We're trying to figure out, okay, well, what is the evidence behind the effectiveness? So this encapsulates both data and why are we going in this direction? And of course, as we see these changes in pedagogical approaches, it impacts the teaching profession. So that's a big topic as well. And then spreading digital fluency is a major thing that we see throughout our reports as well. So these are the six impact statements. These are the problems we're trying to solve within the Horizon report. So all of the trends, all of the challenges, and the technologies will fall under one of these six categories. So let's get started with these. There we go. So our first topic is expanding access and convenience. People expect to be able to learn and work anywhere and have constant access to learning materials as well as each other. K-12 and higher education are generating more methods and platforms for instructors, students, and staff to collaborate and be productive wherever they are. So, as I mentioned, virtual reality, artificial intelligence, these are helping to enable experiences never before possible. In the realm of virtual reality, apologize for this slide, it was from a video, but this is a school in Singapore. So the Ministry of Education is working with local startup companies to create virtual field trips. So we're seeing these be not replacing actual voyages, that's possible, but it's augmenting textbooks with virtual visits. So, there's only so many places that you can be, but if you're looking at a textbook and you have an image or a video, that gives you one type of experience. But if you can actually be immersed in an environment, then the type of insightfulness that comes from that will be expanded. So you'll have, when you start being able to look around and experience things in an immersive environment, that helps the students' success. Within higher education, this is an interesting example from Penn State. This is called First Class, and it's an immersive experience that brings augmented reality into teacher education. So the project uses Microsoft Connect to have users, pre-service teachers practice their foundational teaching skills by using real movement, voice, and gestures to engage a classroom of virtual students. So where does AI come into play? Well, they give each of these students personalities so that the teacher has an opportunity to practice. How do you, if a student is bored or a student is disruptive, how might you be able to handle that within a virtual space so that you can go in and have some techniques in order to work within the real environment? Next, artificial intelligence. So Watson, you may know Watson from the Jeopardy, winning Jeopardy, and I think it won the game Go, one of the hardest games, by working through a large set of data very quickly. And so we're seeing Watson be applied in many cases in higher education, even in preschool education. This is an example of a school in the United States in Georgia that's piloting a vocabulary learning application where the youngsters build language skills through activities using Sesame Street characters. And so the app uses IBM's Watson's technology for natural language processing and pattern recognition to customize and personalize the pace of the lessons to each student. You may have heard of the example at Georgia Tech. They have this is the College of Computing professor Ashot Goel, and he teaches knowledge-based artificial intelligence every semester. It's an online course required of Master of Science in Computer Science program. And the way that Goel puts it, he estimates that 300 of our students post roughly 10,000 messages in their online forums. Far too many inquiries for him and his 8 teaching assistants to handle. So he got a 9th teaching assistant, Jill Watson. And these students, since it was in a virtual space, they were paired with a teaching assistant, and they did not have a clue that assistant was actually artificial intelligence. You know, Jill Watson might have, tipped the hat towards who that was, but Jill Watson was so popular that when it came down to, there was a competition for the best teaching assistants, I think Jill came in the top 3. So you can see the advancements in artificial intelligence and how how that is affecting these types of learning experiences. It's accelerating at such a rate that it's hard for us to even to notice. Okay, next we have Spurring Innovation. So if education is viewed as a vehicle for advancing the global economy, guiding a society to the next big thing, illuminating new ideas, solving pressing challenges, creating opportunities, this is something that we're seeing in K-12 and higher ed. Becoming incubators of inventions and developments to foster positive trends at the student and the organization level. So we go, advancing cultures of innovation. Here is a school in San Antonio. This is so at the student level. This is the Toyota U.S. Foundation recently granted $1.7 million to a school district located next to one of their new plants. And that is helping to support STEM curriculum at this new high school. And it's, they called it the Center for Applied Science and Technology, and it's a workforce pipeline. So the new campus features state-of-the-art labs, rigorous curriculum, and some of the coursework counts for curriculum counts for college coursework. So there's much more connection between companies and educational organizations in K-12 and in higher ed. But it's not just at the student level. Organizations are thinking more like agile startups too. This is at the Boston University. This is part of their digital learning initiative, and they do several things there. They're a hub of online learning and support and production for their MOOCs. They provide grants to faculty willing to invent and be innovative and try new approaches. And they also follow developments in digital learning, referencing our Horizon report, for example, to look at their digital learning strategy. So they're looking at competency-based learning, flipped classroom, micro-credentialing, and so on. Another example is our trends catering to these non-traditional students. So we're seeing an increasing amount of students who aren't your pipeline K-12 to higher ed. They're folks that are working professionals, maybe they're moms, maybe they're military, that are going back to fulfill some of their degree requirements. And so Arizona State University is working with edX, online platform, and they have a program called Global Freshman. So what they do is they offer first-year college-level courses for academic credit, and you don't pay unless you complete the course. So it reduces financial risk for students to undertake when they enroll in college-level courses. They complete their first year risk-free, and as I mentioned, they just pay whenever they pass the course. They also work with companies. This is in the middle is a Starbucks coffee shop. So they have a Starbucks achievement plan where they provide 50 online bachelor's degrees to Starbucks partners. So they have 6 start days per year. So if somebody, there's not just 2, there's more flexibility, and it's pretty rigorous. Each student is assigned an enrollment counselor, a financial aid advisor, an academic advisor, and a success coach. Actually, this is an interesting example for me because I have a friend who's currently going through this, and this is very helpful for her as a working person. Okay, next we go into fostering authentic learning. So, as I mentioned, this is project-based learning, challenge-based learning, competency-based learning. All of these pedagogical trends are in the service of creating rich richer and more hands-on real-world experiences for students. The embedding of maker culture in education has made students active contributors to the knowledge ecosystem. Students are becoming creators rather than consumers, and that's part of this authentic learning push. One of the topics that we see in both reports is that deeper learning approaches. And so what we have here is kind of that STEAM example here. This is a arts academy that partnered with a national military park to investigate battlefields for artifacts. And so, as you notice here, they're students and they're doing creative. It looks like they're painting. But if you look around them, they are in a science laboratory. So it's that idea that crossing disciplines is a way of helping these students kind of get a greater engagement with that material. And what it does is it creates they feel more involved and they can become more passionate about what they're doing because there's a connection to something that's out there and real. This is also happening in higher ed. This is Maastricht University in the Netherlands. Problem-based learning principles are integrated into all of their coursework. They keep their courses, their classes small, so roughly 12 students, and they're supervised by a tutor. And each class is tasked at solving a real-world challenge. An example assignment here is European Public Health, which is a case study where an electrician with tuberculosis might have infected patients at a hospital as well as passengers on the public transportation. So students are tasked with answering these questions. How is tuberculosis spread? What are the risk factors? What national and cross-border measures are needed to prevent further spread of the disease? So this is integrated in all of their coursework, is having students take the lead and the instructor becomes a guide that helps mentor them to get the answers that they receive. Of course, makerspaces has been a topic of conversation for many years, as long as I've been with the NMC, about 4 years. So one of the examples we reference is International School of Billund in Denmark, and they created a creator space to support authentic learning. In one project, 4,000 students were tasked at designing and building their own musical instruments, which led not only to the development of tangible products, that idea of students as producers, but it also created some substantial discussions around the science behind music. So another kind of STEAM example where the making is helping to understand, getting a deeper understanding of how science works for creative needs. This is the Foundry at Duke University, a makerspace for student teams, faculty, and staff, focused on engineering, energy, entrepreneurship, sustainability. This is where all that stuff happens. It's a modular and flexible workspace, enriching the student experience by providing dedicated design and project space for co-curricular and entrepreneurial activities. So as you can see, there's some relationship with some of the other trends as well. One of my perennial favorites, and when I talk about these maker spaces, is what's happening at Case Western Reserve University. They're featured on the cover of the higher ed report, but they have something called the Think Box. And so the Think Box is taking the idea of design thinking principles and applying it to a building. So each level is a different idea. Level one is a community space. So it's not just limited to college students, but anyone in the community interested in tinkering and creating can get into this space community, and they may be working on something and run into somebody working on something, and they may find that they want to collaborate on a project. Well, they go up one flight of stairs, and then there's a room for collaboration. So they've designed a space where some of those ideas can be fleshed out. Once they have an idea that they want to prototype, they go up to level 3 that has all the tools needed to develop small prototypes, and then getting into the fabrication realm, go up one more flight to fabrication level, and from there they can take whatever they've produced and then go up another level and put that object into a project space where they can begin experimenting with it and see how it works. If they have something that is working successfully for them and they want to start marketing it, they can go up into the entrepreneurship space, work with some specialists there that can help take that product to the next level. And if they have something substantial, then they can go up to the incubator space where the university helps market that product and And it's just a really interesting concept in terms of taking a maker space and moving it beyond just a room into a building and having each floor be a series of steps that leads you to innovation. Okay, now onto the data stuff. K-12 and higher ed are becoming more adept at capturing an increasing amount of data generated through ubiquitous use of digital tools. Tracking data points through student performance, engagement, and behavior is informing decision-making across educational institutions. The trend is fueling more personalized learning experiences through adaptive learning tools that analyze areas for improvement and deliver personalized, tailored content to each student. One of the topics that's featured in both reports is growing focus on measuring learning. And, education is always focused on measuring learning. It's always been grade books. What we're thinking about is how are digital tools helping with this learning? How are we finding more ways of learning how students are engaging with material? This is an example of 3 charter schools that are using blended learning models to work with at-risk students that don't have the same kind of background to set them up for success. So they have fully equipped classrooms. The state provides data tracking software, and they use an assessment system called Galileo. Students are aware of their progress at all times and are encouraged to think about the ways they need to improve. So dashboards are important in this area. And the teachers report that these tools are helping them better meet their students' needs by allowing them to focus on the whole child instead of the assignment. So it's the idea of students understanding where they are in relationship to their peers, and where these schools are in relationship to each other. So we're starting to break down the silos of data so we can really see what things are working well. Here's an example of that dashboard idea. This is at Nottingham Trent University. They use a dashboard so that they can have timely interventions from tutors, positively impacting student engagement and behavior. There's data collected from a number of sources, and not all the sources are related to curriculum or to assignments, because there are several factors that several touch points that can predict if the student's not going to do well in school. So they look at online learning environments, how they're engaging there, card swipes, library access, are they going to the library, as well as engagement scores. And so they can benchmark their progress in a very quick way. And so it's really changed the university culture into a data-driven approach. Analytics technologies. Within the K-12 realm, one of the mainstream examples of how analytic technologies can be packaged in an adaptive and informed learning experience is Khan Academy. The site continually assesses learner progress, incorporating algorithms to adapt curricular content to teach for mastery before advancing to the next level. The technology is coupled with both teacher, learner, and parent views of progress, so within the K-12 space. Adaptive learning technologies. Here we have an example at Colorado Technical University using adaptive learning as a major component of their long-range academic planning. So about 82% or 800 faculty members use IntelliPath, the university's adaptive learning platform. Longitudinal research shows students have increased control of their work by progressing more quickly through known material. They're more engaged. They state classes are more fun, and they demonstrate higher confidence in mastering challenging subject areas. A student in algebra course, for example, may be stronger in general fractions, but weaker at solving linear equations with fractions. So the platform assesses each student's strength and changes how the course is delivered, providing more time to work on these problematic areas. Next, we move on to improving the teaching profession. Basically, we have new tools, we have new pedagogies, they require new spaces. So the pedagogical emphasis on hands-on, technology-enhanced learning has impacted every facet of education, with students inventing, iterating, and collaborating regularly. Instructors have been transplanted from their position as sage on the stage to guide on the side, and the learning spaces are slowly changing to support these new methods. Part of this is rethinking the roles of teachers, of educators. Here we have K-12 schools in experimenting with new ideas and adjusting to evolving technology. So this is an example from the Veromaki School in Finland, working to create communities of digital co-teaching across each school grade. So teachers working together to share goals associated with improving planning and sharing and adapting their designs of learning experiences to meet new challenges. So that kind of community as a practice is becoming a way of improving the teaching profession. And of course, we talked about learning spaces. I like to use this slide. This is a 14th century image of a university lecture, but it could be easily the university lecture that I took when I was in graduate school about 10 years ago. And what's happening now? Not much has changed. This is a prime example, and I like this because if you look around the room, you see looks like somebody's sleeping. You've got people talking to each other. Probably somebody's reading a text that isn't being referenced. So this has been ingrained in education for such a long time, and this is what newer spaces are looking like. So we're understanding that the contemporary workforce is collaborative. It uses technology. So this is Case Western Reserve. They have flexible learning spaces here. You have time for students to work independently, work collaboratively. You have dry erase boards to take notes, and then you have large displays in order to share some of that work. So this is kind of this is where the new deeper learning approaches, the new pedagogies are impacting the learning environment, and having good Wi-Fi and electricity is critical as well. Within schools, they're thinking about this too. This is redesigning learning spaces within the schools. This is a European report on the Future Classroom Lab. It identifies examples for improved spaces for teaching. And so what you see here is ideas such as flexible furniture, different seating configurations, access to digital tools, and the need for formal and informal learning spaces. Even at the top there you have what looks like a video recording studio, motion capture, or some kind of video capture. So this is the type of classroom of the future that has different zones for the different types of activities, and not just based on that first image of rows of chairs, because the type of learning that happens there is much more varied. Next, the next generation learning management system. One of the examples we cite in our report is Smart Sparrow. Courseware gives instructors full control, pedagogical control over students' learning experiences, and here is an interesting example here. There's the idea is, hi, meet Derek. He's looking for his long lost father. And he hired an investigator to find out who his dad is, and he's narrowed it down to these three candidates: Mike the Milkman, Conrad the Cowboy, and Donnie the Doctor. And so using this platform, they're able to use these virtual laboratories to test blood types, to have a more, a deeper learning experience where they actually have a problem that they're trying to solve. And the slide on the bottom right shows where that student is on their progress to the completion of that process. And so, we understand that not everything is linear. You might have some questions, and you might have to go and get some help and then get back on that path. But that's what this learning management system is doing. Is it's motivating high achievers so they can excel quicker. It maximizes students' potential using real-time analytics, and instructors can zero in on the common mistakes and misconceptions in their courses and improve them and tweak their lessons so that if there's something that's stopping people, that they can work on clarifying those type of things. So Smart Sparrow is one of the examples we talk about. Next, we have spreading digital fluency. So let's go back there for 1 second. Technology and digital tools are becoming ubiquitous, of course, but they can be problematic if they're not integrated into the learning process in meaningful ways. So that's part of this digital fluency thing. A major element is recognizing that simply understanding how to use a device or certain software is not enough. Instructors, staff, and students must be able to make connections between the tools and their intended outcomes. Ownership of this movement must be shared and supported among education leaders and practitioners because digital fluency is an important thread that runs through practically every facet of teaching and learning. So that's why that's important. Teaching computational thinking is one of the topics within our school report. And in Singapore, they're teaching computational thinking at the preschool level. So they use the School of Fish curriculum loaded on the tablets, which provides interactive features with characters, games, and analog activities to help young learners approach problem solving and creative thinking. So computational thinking as an idea to think about things in terms of steps, breaking down large problems into smaller steps that are sequential, because that's the type of thinking that goes into some of the coding that we'll see come up later. So at the base level, this is becoming more important because we're understanding how to think as computers do. And that involves coding, relates to coding as a literacy. So this is a secondary school in Armenia, and they're serving as a coding hub during the summer. So over 2 weeks, children's grades 2 to 5 learn foundations of coding through gaming and visual art elements using lessons from code.org. And so lots more after-school programming happening. The challenge here is that there's not standalone coding classes being offered, so these after-school and supplemental coding classes are becoming important. So we'll eventually see coding become integrated into as a part of all the work that people are doing. Blended learning and designs, of course, is familiar. The most effective incarnations of this trend incorporate emerging technologies that enable students to learn in ways not previously possible. So here's an example of an architecture student at Ryerson University who's using a virtual reality headset to immerse themselves in 360-degree sketches of their designs. You have an example right here. And so, So you'll see an example here. The faculty member of the Bachelor of Architectural Science degree stated that when you're seeing things in VR, you're more sensitive to how the building's put together and what views you're trying to set up, things you don't always pick up from looking at floor plans. So this blended approach allows the students to get a more realistic understanding of how their design is going to look in the real world. And so that's something that blended learning approaches help students with. And so that, in a nutshell, is our 6 different impact statements. And I understand that the Horizon report, we're limited on all the topics that we can talk about, but I'm sure as you go to different conferences and you have conversations about trends or challenges that you're approaching, I'm fairly certain that one of those topics that you're talking about might fall into one of these categories. So we want you to think about this, think about what other things you see within your conversations, within your professional development that relate to these impact statements, because we believe that this is helping to organize some of the major trends and threads that are being woven throughout both higher ed and K-12, and want you to begin thinking about how some of the work that you're doing is relating to these different topics. Got one more slide here. So for members, we have a new welcome page. If you go to nmc.org/welcome, we're bringing our resources together in an easy to find manner so that if you want access to one of our recorded webinars, or you want to serve on an expert panel, or anything that involves around connecting more to our community, that's going to be a place that you're going to want to go as Griffith University members, then you have access to that. And if you know anybody who's interested in who works in schools, encourage them to go to go.nmc.org K12 list to be connected with us, because we're going to have some big announcements in 2018 related to K12 in the schools. And of course, you can always email me, Alex at nmc.org, if you have any questions or you want to be connected with anyone in our community. The NMC serves as a hub. We are a place where we help to connect people and ideas. And what we're going to be doing in 2018 is looking at those impact statements as ways of connecting folks. So if there's a particular topic or an area, if authentic learning approach is an area for you, we can help bring you together with other people who are working on furthering these trends or overcoming some obstacles related to that. So think about what you might be interested in, and we'll be coming out in 2018 with ways of bringing you together with other people working